Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for White and White Sense, welcoming you to this week's Talking News. This week I come to you from Cambridge. We're again on the university hunt for my son who's looking to study computer science. It is extremely warm at over 30 degrees and we are slightly struggling with the heat. This said, it is a beautiful city and the colleges are just so stunning to look at. With over 2,000 students applying for 100 places, the odds aren't looking good, but it has been a really lovely experience visiting the old buildings. Everybody stay safe in this heat. Lisa, CEO, Site for White and White Sense.
Here is this week's charity news on the 11th of July 2025. Our next hearing cafe is on Monday at the Donkey Sanctuary, Wroxall, between 10:30 a.m. and midday. All very welcome.
Swimming at Medina is on Monday between 1:15 p.m. and 2 p.m. We have the whole pool, so whether you wish to swim lanes or just have gentle exercise in the pool, you will be made very welcome. The cost is £6 and transport is available, although limited. All members are very welcome to join. Unfortunately, due to planned maintenance of the pool, this will be the last session until September.
Yoga is on Tuesday at Millbrook House. This group is now full, but if you wish to put your name down on the waiting list, please call the office.
Coffee and chat is on Wednesday, starting at 10 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. The cost is £2 to include drinks and cake. Staff are on hand to help with any queries and to demonstrate equipment.
Our next Eye on Social is on Tuesday the 15th of July, a planned trip to Bembridge Fort. There is a charge of £10 per person plus transport if required. If you're interested and would like to join us, please let the office know. This trip will only run if enough people are interested in attending.
Tandem Biking Club is now up and running, normally held on a Tuesday between Newport Industrial Estate and Cowes. Please call the office and book a slot. Our next planned session is on Tuesday the 15th of July.
Save the date, July the 30th, our day of celebration here at Millbrook House between midday and 3 p.m. We will be having afternoon tea and entertainment. This is open to all members, volunteers and supporters of the charity to come together and celebrate the work we all do for the Isle of Wight. Please call the office if you would like to attend, along with any dietary requirements. On this day, we will also be our final formal farewell to Lisa, our CEO, who is retiring. The presentation will be made at 1 p.m. Please pop in during the celebrations and say hello.
Wet Wheels trips are planned for the 11th of August and the 1st of September. This chartered boat will take members out onto the Solent for a 90-minute trip. The cost is £8 per person, but once again numbers are limited, so a ballot will have to be held if oversubscribed. Please call the office if you are interested. The closing date to put your names down is next Friday, the 18th of July.
Our Monday 100 Club has spare balls available. If anyone would like to buy a ball, it is £2 per month or £24 for the full year. The more balls in the draw, the higher the prize money each month. If you would like to take part in our monthly draw, please call the office. This is part of our fundraising activities.
The island's bus and rail users group are holding a public meeting on Saturday the 19th of July at 11 o'clock to be held in the main building of Newport Methodist Church, lasting around 90 minutes. The Methodist Church is on the left-hand side of Newport's Quay Street when walking away from the High Street towards the river. Ushers will be on hand to assist attendees from street level into the meeting hall area and can provide assistance to a seat if required. If you are a bus and a rail user, please go along and supply feedback of your experiences while travelling.
This is Chris reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. 15-year Island Transport Plan focuses on lowering carbon and increasing inclusivity. A 15-year vision for island transport will be examined by the Isle of Wight councillors this week. The Economy, Regeneration, Transport and Infrastructure Committee, ERTIC, is due to discuss the draft Island Transport Plan, a key document to direct transport policy, development and delivery on the Isle of Wight from 2025 to 2040. Councillors will decide whether to approve the current draft Island Transport Plan for publication and a public consultation on the plan starting in autumn 2025. Consultation responses will be used to inform the final draft, which will come before Economy, Regeneration, Transport and Infrastructure Committee ahead of a full council vote in early next year. A committee report describes the Island Transport Plan's vision as an inclusive transport system that enables a low-carbon, safe, prosperous and healthy future for all residents and visitors, and seeks to protect and enhance the island's unique local, natural and built environment. It sets out four main objectives: a transport network that produces net zero greenhouse gas emissions and is resilient to climate change impacts, people and goods travelling sustainably and efficiently to and from and around the island. An inclusive, accessible and affordable transport network, and one which is safe, supporting thriving, healthier communities. It is a statutory requirement for the Isle of Wight Council as a local transport authority to maintain an up-to-date local transport plan, the report notes. The Island Transport Plan has been consciously drafted with climate change risks and opportunities in mind, with all key actions and objectives steered in the direction of a net zero goal for the island by 2040 and the climate and environment strategy. It is recognised that a transport network that performs well supports local economic growth, and the Island Transport Plan is very much based on this principle. It is also recognised that car ownership can be a financial barrier to some. Therefore, an improved sustainable transport network will go some way to address this issue. An efficient and sustainable transport network is essential for current young people and future generations to access education, employment, social events, appointments, etc.
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. Whitelink celebrates community champions at annual partnership event. Whitelink welcomed around 200 guests to Key Arts in Newport last week for its annual Whitelink in the Community celebration, recognising the achievements of the many talented individuals and groups it supports across the island. From rising sports stars to charity organisers, musicians and performers, the evening brought together a vibrant cross-section of the island's community partners. Over coffee and cake, guests had the opportunity to connect, share their stories and meet members of the Whitelink team in a relaxed and informal setting. Whitelink proudly supports more than 50 sports, charitable and cultural groups and almost 80 individual athletes through the Isle of Wight Council's Talented Athletes Scheme. The sponsorship scheme forms part of Whitelink in the Community, the company's commitment to giving back to the island through long-term support for grassroots organisations as well as standout individuals. Abby Millichamp from the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary said, "It was great to have the opportunity to meet more of the Whitelink team and to thank them for their support for the 127 animals that we look after. Anytime we need emergency transport to a mainland equine hospital, Whitelink provides us with travel assistance, which is vital for us as a charity and something we really appreciate." Ross Hammond from Oakfield Youth FC said, "If it wasn't for Whitelink, our young players wouldn't have the opportunity to go off the island every weekend to play football. So we are so grateful for their support." Katie Taylor, Whitelink's chief executive, said, "It was great to meet so many talented teams and individuals and hear firsthand how our supporters help them. We've been supporting island causes for almost 40 years and it has been such an inspiring night to have everyone in the same room. We're proud to stand alongside so many talented and inspiring people who achieve great things and give so much back to their communities."
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Island duo to swim 24 kilometres in Finland to celebrate 10 years of Wave Project Surf Therapy. A pair of local fundraisers are preparing to tackle a 24-kilometre swim along Finland's Ulanka River to mark 10 years of the Isle of Wight Wave Project, with every penny raised staying on the island to help local children. On Saturday, the 19th of July 2025, the pair will take on the remote challenge, swimming in pairs and carrying mandatory survival equipment in case they get lost in sections of forest known to be home to wolves and bears. They aim to complete the 24-kilometre distance in around 8 hours. The Wave Project has supported more than 600 local children since 2015, offering fully funded surf therapy sessions that help young people build confidence, resilience, and a new love for the sea. The project also runs one of the UK's few adaptive surfing hubs, giving people with disabilities safe access to the water. One of the swimmers has said, "We hope this challenge reflects the bravery shown by the children who step out of their comfort zone to try surf therapy for the first time. Thank you for your support over the last 10 years. Let's make it another 10 and beyond." The fundraising target for the Finland swim is £1,000, with all money staying on the Isle of Wight to directly support local surf therapy sessions.
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. Newport Railway Station exhibition now open to the public. Isle of Wight Steam Railway has launched a new exhibition telling the story of Newport Station, now open at the Newport and Carisbrooke Community Centre. The display will run until November 2025 at the Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council's Community Hub at 64 High Street, Newport, PO 31BA. Newport Station was once the hub of the Isle of Wight's railway system, which spanned around 55 miles at its peak. The exhibition begins with the opening of the island's railways in the 1860s and covers the early 1920s when several separate railway companies operated. In 1923, these companies were grouped into the newly formed Southern Railway. The Southern made significant investments in the island network before the Second World War. The final part of the exhibition covers the British Rail era from 1948, which saw a gradual decline in railway traffic until, by 1967, only the electrified line from Ryde Pierhead to Shanklin remained in operation. In the 1970s, the Isle of Wight Steam Railway, originally the Wight Locomotive Society, based at Haven Street, began to reopen the line from Wootton to Smallbrook Junction, the interchange with Island Line. By Isle of Wight standards, Newport Station was impressively large. In contemporary photographs, it appears like a miniature Clapham Junction. Today, nothing of the station remains, having been cleared during redevelopment works from the 1970s onwards. Most people driving along the dual carriageway through Newport are unaware that they are travelling through what was once the heart of the island's rail network. The exhibition includes images from the Isle of Wight Steam Railway's photographic archive, copies of paintings, archive material, tickets, and a small collection of railway-related artefacts. Curators hope the exhibition will help visitors understand how Newport Station fitted into the layout of the town and gain a better appreciation of the economic and social importance of island railways over more than 100 years. The display also celebrates the 150th anniversary of the opening of the Ryde and Newport Railway in December 1875, and the National Rail 200 event marking 200 years of railway travel since 1825.
Good morning, this is Valerie Rutherford Jackson, your reader for today.
And Tony is here to support.
Southern Vectis are going to keep us abreast of changes. Southern Vectis update on the 11th of July 2025. The current work in Newport Bus Station will end on the 11th of July, with buses returning to their usual stands. We have made updates to accessibility tactile around the Newport Bus Station as follows. On ASDA, that's Route 1, the tactile slabs are now 6 foot closer to the pedestrian crossing in the station. On B stand, Route 7, 12 and 38. The tactile slabs have been extended by 1 length closer to the exit of the station, so the bus pulls further forward. On C stand, Route 2, 3 and 8. The tactile slabs at the front of the stand have been moved closer to the railings, and the flagpole is moved 1 slab to the left side of its old location. We have also added a second set of tactile slabs where the second bus would load if there are 2 buses on the stand at the same time. We hope these improvements are well received for those who utilise them.
Our member Viv wanted to give a review and recommend Live Wire Electrical, a shop just behind Newport Bus Station. Eric and Liz, who like me are members of Sight for Wight, recommended the shop to me when I needed to purchase a new washing machine, as the bearings had gone on mine and are now obsolete because of the age of it, and I, like Liz not seeing at all, can't operate anything digital. They told me that the owner, Chris, was so helpful and caring, so I have now purchased a new one from them, and they will dispose of my old one, plumb in the new one, and will quickly help me to mark any part of the device to operate it, though I have made recorded instructions myself as well. They were so kind, caring and helpful, and had a few new machines to show me, but I was satisfied with the first one I touched, as it could still be operated with the clicking of buttons and dials, and he told me that they have helped many other blind people over the years, and some with other disabilities. They also do repairs as well. I would highly recommend this business to anyone, especially for those who are really vulnerable and don't know where to turn for help. Fortunately, I do have a family who are always there to help me, but they were away. But I had a good friend who took me over to Newport, who said she would help again if I needed to go over anything. The contact details for Live Wire Electrical are telephone 01983 522 420. The address is Live Wire Electrical, Unit 2, 44 Orchard Street, Newport, Isle of Wight, PO 301JZ. Agency admits delays in major flooding action. Over a 2-hour delay for installing floodgates. The Environmental Agency has admitted that lessons have been learnt over its response to major flooding in Ryde. It follows the publication of a long-awaited report into the events of October 2023. It was found there was a near 2.5-hour delay in contractors installing 2 floodboards in each gate at Simeon Recreation Park in October 2023. However, the report fails to establish whether the Environmental Agency's response worsened the situation. Given it took 21 months to complete, Isle of Wight East MP Joe Robertson said he was unimpressed, and it was hard to have full confidence that a similar event with similar mistakes and outcomes would not happen again. Around 100 properties and businesses suffered internal flooding in the Monkton Mead area of Ryde on October 25th. In the aftermath, affected residents took aim at the Monkton Mead Flood Alleviation Scheme, upgraded in 2019, which was designed to protect properties against, quote, 1 in 100 year event, end quote. The Environmental Agency now says the rainfall, the largest in Ryde since 1949, was somewhere between a 1 in 80 to 1 in 200 year occurrence. And the council leader, Councillor Philip Jordan, previously said failure to close the Simeon Park gates in good time contributed to flooding. Only 2 of the 5 or 6 boards were put in each of the 3 gates in the early hours of October 25. The report found the flood operations duty officer made this request and asked for grills to be cleared at 3 in the morning when water levels were at 2.2 metres AED. Despite calls and texts, the FODO was unable to contact the contractor until 3:52 a.m, resulting in a delay in communicating the decision. By 4 o'clock in the morning, when water levels had exceeded 2.72 metres, the boards had still not been installed nor the grills cleared. More than an hour later, the boards were in place and the Monkton Mead grill cleared. The report said that putting in all 5 or 6 boards could have disrupted surface water flow paths, with water pooling outside of the wreck and flood storage area and increasing risk of property flooding. At 5:53 a.m, it was communicated that someone should remain on site in Ryde However, the contractor was sent to help with flooding at Honey Hill. Just 5 minutes later, the contractor was asked to go back to Ryde to check the stop logs at the wreck, but it's unclear whether this happened. The report concludes that the Environmental Agency did deviate from procedures. An Environmental Agency spokesman told the county press, "Every decision we took during the response was taken with the best intentions of protecting residents from the impacts of flooding from all sources. But there are aspects of our response that we would now do differently based on the learning from this incident. We have built these improvements into the defence structures themselves and how they operate. We will continue to do all we can, along with our partner authorities, to protect the residents of Ryde from the risks of future flooding."
MP slams coroner as a problem in the Commons by a court reporter. Isle of Wight East MP Joe Robertson slammed the island's coroner as a problem in a question in the House of Commons on Tuesday. Mr. Robertson asked a question to Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Justice Alex Davis-Jones, MP, referring to the backlog of inquests on the island as the worst in the country and causing pain and distress. He said, "The backlog of cases in the Isle of Wight Coroner's Service is the worst in the country, causing pain and distress to too many families, some of whom are waiting 800 days to find out what happened to their loved ones. Will the Minister offer any comments or support to these families, and will she meet with me to discuss how to discuss with the problems of the Isle of Wight Coroner?" In response, the Minister said she met with the Chief Coroner about the issue and is reassured by the action being taken. She said, "Can I thank the Honourable Member on his engagement in this issue? I recently met with the Chief Coroner to discuss this specific issue on the Isle of Wight because we know delays are causing untold turmoil to families in an already traumatic process. I will happily meet with him to discuss the way forward, but I am reassured by the action being taken by the Chief Coroner in terms of addressing this issue in the Isle of Wight directly." Mr. Robertson recently was involved in a row with Isle of Wight Coroner Caroline Summerray over a photo taken of the coroner's courtroom during his visit to discuss the backlog of inquests, as exclusively revealed by the county press. Mrs. Summerray asked Mr. Robertson to take the photo on the new Seaclose courtroom off his social media. The Isle of Wight Council, acting on behalf of the coroner, contacted the CP, implying that the photo was taken illegally and without approval. The latest government data shows in 2024 the estimated average time taken to process an inquest on the Isle of Wight was 76 weeks, up from 67 in 23 and 63 in 23. The wait on the Isle of Wight for an inquest to be concluded is at least 13 weeks longer than any other area in England and Wales.
Reorganisation survey deeply unsatisfactory. A Hampshire and Isle of Wight public consultation relating to landmark local government reorganisation (LGR) plans has been condemned as deeply unsatisfactory. Independent councillor Geoffrey Brodie described the online survey, called Our Place, Our Future, as possibly the most non-user-friendly and complex survey I have encountered in a long time. In a written question tabled last week at the Policy, Finance and Resources Committee meeting, the Pan and the Barton representative said he expected most islands to give up on it. A group of 12 local authorities across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, including the Isle of Wight Council, Southampton City Council and Winchester City Council are asking residents to share their views on 3 reorganisation options being considered. Councillor Brodie said, "Can I ask who was responsible for this survey, and did this council leader really endorse it?" A prepared council response said the research agency delivering the survey is Think's Insight. The leaders and chief executives of the various local authorities, both upper and lower tier, were able to provide input on the content and questions from which the agency constructed and designed the survey. The consultation ends on July 27th. The survey can be found at web address https://ourplaceourfuture, or one word, .commonplace, or one word, .is.
A man who deliberately torched a house could face jail. A man who deliberately set fire to a house belonging to a charity will learn his fate later this summer. Damon Wilkins, of no fixed abode, appeared at the Isle of Wight Crown Court on July the 5th. The 26-year-old initially denied the charge of arson with intent to endanger life, relating to events on September the 21st last year. However, he later changed his plea to guilty. The incident caused damage to a building on Betsworth Road belonging to the Isle of Wight branch of MenCap, a charity that supports people with learning disabilities and their families. The Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service were called to the blaze shortly before 1 a.m. and at the Crown Court, Jim Osborne, representing Wilkins, said 2 psychiatric reports agreed his client has complex needs until he needed to be made subject to a hospital order to explore how best to treat him. However, Judge James Newton Price said he would not be able to make the hospital order until a bed had been found for him at an appropriate psychiatric facility, and it wasn't necessary at this stage anyway. Instead, he ordered a probation report and remanded Wilkins in custody until sentencing on August the 15th.
Dreadful driver is jailed after 90 miles an hour police chase. A dangerous driver who took police on a terrifying chase along a main route has been jailed and told he could have killed someone. Callum Hickman of Prince's Course, Southampton, appeared for sentencing at the Isle of Wight Crown Court last Friday. The 26-year-old previously pleaded guilty to dangerous driving on Medina Way, the dual carriageway in Newport, on August the 4th last year. Prosecutor Tim Devlin said that at around 11:20 a.m. police were alerted to a Citroen C3 flagged as having no documentation in Whippingham. The driver, Hickman, refused to stop for police and sped off, resulting in a prolonged high-speed chase. Shocking dashcam footage shown in court and available to watch at countypress.co.uk showed Hickman attempting to evade officers along Whippingham Road, weaving between cars on both sides of the road. Turning towards Newport, the chase reached speeds of over 85 miles an hour, with the chase cancelled due to the danger outside Medina Leisure Centre. Turning towards Newport, the chase reached speeds of over 85 miles an hour, with the chase cancelled due to danger outside Medina Leisure Centre, where Hickman was travelling at 70 miles an hour in the 30 zone. CCTV footage captured Hickman turning onto the wrong lane on the dual carriageway and driving towards the ongoing traffic before turning off and abandoning the car near the roundabout outside Currys. Hickman collided with several vehicles, damaged street furniture and crashed the car on Riverway. Hickman has 41 convictions for 125 previous offences. It was previously revealed that Hickman was convicted of dangerous driving in May 2018 and 2021. For the latter, he received a 16-month jail term after leading police on a chase through Southampton in the middle of the night while driving a stolen vehicle. Hannah Tickle, defending, admitted that her client showed egregious disregard for public welfare. Hickman is extremely remorseful, Ms. Tickle said. She said her client is now engaged and his fiancée is pregnant, due in 7 months, and he has cut himself off from bad influences. Judge James Newton Price described the pursuit as terrifying, reaching speeds of up to 90 miles an hour. "You could so easily have killed someone," he said. "You are a persistent offender and a dreadful driver." Hickman was handed an immediate 14-month prison sentence and disqualified from driving for 43 months.
Team Isle of Wight set to take on the World Island Elite. The eyes of the world will be fixed on the quiet Scottish archipelago of islands called Orkney for the 225 Island Games, and Team Isle of Wight will be doing their best to put their stamp on it. The Island Games start on Saturday, July the 12th, with an opening ceremony in mainland Orkney's biggest town, Kirkwall. Brother and sister swimming duo Harry and Grace Pointer have been selected on the Isle of Wight's water carriers for the ceremony, while footballer Sally Mumford has been chosen as my flag bearer. Harry and Grace will be part of a tradition that will see all of the islands invited to pour water from their island with a special water feature. So by uniting all of the islands, water is to become one island, the equivalent of the Olympic rings. The 20th International Island Games will feature 12 different sports, with the Isle of Wight featuring in 8 of them: ladies football, triathlon, sailing, badminton, golf, cycling, athletics and swimming. The island will be sending a team of 99 athletes to the Games, a distance of more than 760 miles over land and sea. The journey alone will take Team Isle of Wight a gruelling 17 hours, mainly by coach. Some of the families and friends of the Team Isle of Wight athletes will also be making the long trip north to cheer them on. A celebration of sports and island communities, the week-long event will see athletes from up to 24 island groups from across the world complete. It will conclude on Friday, July the 18th. This event will be the largest ever hosted in Orkney, with an expected 2,500 to 3,000 visitors expected. The Pickaway Centre, known locally as Picky, will be a pivotal venue, with Team Isle of Wight's athletes, badminton players and swimmers competing there. Kirkwall Grammar School and Stromness Academy will be the hubs for the football, while Orkney and Stranmess golf clubs will stage the golf competitions. Hazelton Slip Training Centre in Kirkwall will be the hub for the sailing events, while Stromness Harbour town and its surrounds will host the triathlon.
Attempted robbery in Sandown. A man has been charged as part of an investigation into 2 incidents in Sandown shops. Shortly before 10 p.m. on Monday, the co-op on Sandown High Street was targeted. Staff were assaulted during an attempted theft, and a short while later, at the Sainsbury's up the road, A number of items were stolen. Further to this, when the police located a suspect, an officer was kicked. Aaron Payne of Avenue Road, Sandown, has been arrested and subsequently charged with attempted robbery, theft from a shop, a public order offence and assaulting by beating of an emergency worker. The 43-year-old was remanded in custody to appear at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court.
Questions asked on £6.3 million prison estate roads money. Questions have been asked of a £6.3 million grant from the government to County Hall to repair and maintain land and roads near the Isle of Wight's prisons. At last week's Policy, Finance and Resources Committee, the Empowering Islanders Group's Councillor Chris Jarman probed what has happened to the major funding from the Ministry of Justice, the MOJ. In April 21, the council reached a deal with the MOJ to take control of some of Newport's prison estate roads, with £6.3 million granted for maintenance purposes. A written question from Councillor Jarman said, the council press release on October the 24th states that £869,000, around 14% of that capital payment, has been spent on works on the site, including lights and drains. What is the capital dispensation of all individual amounts paid from the £96.3 million, with details of the ring-fenced accounts containing the balance? The council statement in response said, following the transfer of ownership to the council, funding was received from the MOJ to facilitate the repair and ongoing maintenance of roads and some public land across Parkhurst, Camp Hill and the Albany estates. This handling included some works to Haskell Road and Clissold Road that remains within the control and ownership of the MOJ. Since the point of land transfer, the council has been undertaking regular safety inspections of these elements of the road network for which it is responsible, and carrying out reactive safety works as and when deemed necessary. The council has been evaluating the condition of the road network and underlying drainage system with the intention of moving forward with the delivery of improvement works. The works will not allow for the full reconstruction of the roads and adoption onto the PFI highway network, as insufficient funding was transferred by MOJ to facilitate this level of investment. The statement added the funding will seek to effectively manage any ongoing safety and maintenance issues. The council has had difficulties in recruiting a suitable and experienced project manager, but once appointed, extensive engagement will be carried out with the residents of the affected roads prior to the start of works.
Farm Director Horse Neglect. A farm director has been taken to court by the RSPCA accused of neglecting two horses by failing to address their poor body conditions and treating deformities. Trevor Rand of Mews Lane, Newport, appeared before Isle of Wight magistrates on Tuesday, July 8th. The 61-year-old denied 4 counts of animal neglect at Little Fairley Farm in Newport between July 23rd and October 31st last year. Mr. Rand is accused of failing to meet the needs of mares Tick-Knock, Tick-Tock and Twisty. He's accused of failing to protect both horses from pain, suffering, injury and disease by failing to adequately investigate and address the cause of a poor body condition. The case was adjourned to July 23rd.
Plan for 21 houses is rejected. A developer's bid to build 21 houses on land at medium risk of flooding off the main road in Binstead has been turned down by planners. County Hall refused Indigo Blue's outline application for the 8 two-bedroom houses, little 3-bedroomed houses and 4 4-bedroomed houses at the site of the former Posidin Besson factory. The wider area has been hit by well-documented flooding in recent years. Proposal 21/02564/OUT also included site access alterations, parking and garaging, and related landscaping and drainage works. Indigo Blue's agent, Robert Gray Design, said there is a desperate need for the derelict brownfield site to be developed in a sensible manner to provide much needed housing to support the under-provision of housing on the island. Justifying their decision, planners wrote, "The application site is at mediation risk of surface water flooding, and the local area has been subject to flooding in recent years, triggering local flood risk investigations in 2014 and 2022. The application has failed to consider whether there are reasonable available sites appropriate for the proposed development in areas at lower risk of flooding."
The number of neglected felines is unmanageable. Neglected and unwanted cat numbers are unmanageable and are only getting worse, an animal rescuer has warned, and fears of an island-wide cat crisis. Nikki Hazelgrove from Feline Welfare, based in Newport, says she is getting calls almost every other day about cats in need and wants to highlight how bad the situation is. "The neglect is heartbreaking and avoidable," she said. "Pregnant cats are a particular cause for concern," says Nikki, who has been rescuing since 1980. She was recently called to a garden where a cat had given birth behind a shed. Nikki believes one of the main issues is a lack of neutering and spaying, partly down to cost and also COVID, a time when many vets were not providing the service. Another problem is that cats, much like dogs, were bought during the pandemic and later not wanted. Around 50% of the cats Nikki comes across do not have up-to-date microchip information. Nikki has also raised concerns over mainland cats being brought to the island. In May and June, Cats Protection transferred 15 cats from its Newbury Centre to its Ryde base, while 4 cats and 12 kittens came from Southampton at the beginning of this month. These mainland cats are taking homes away from island cats. This is only a small island and you can't keep filling it up, and welfare is suffering because there's not enough room to take them. Mel Reid, Centre Manager of Cats Protection Isle of Wight, said the most recent shipment of cats was the first time in 16 months that kittens were ferried to the island. She said the Ryde Centre is currently not full, with 61 cats and kittens in care. "We're glad to say that most of the kittens have been reserved and will be going to new homes very soon," she said. Like many animal welfare charities, we sometimes move cats between our neighbouring areas and teams if there are capacity or community welfare issues, or when we believe they will have a better chance of being rehomed. RSPCA Isle of Wight told the county press it is aware of rising levels of unwanted cats and kittens, which is placing increasing pressure on animal welfare services nationwide and locally. Nikki is encouraging pet owners to have their cats spayed and neutered.
A woman arrested on suspicion of drug driving. A suspected drug driver was arrested after a car flipped on its side in Newport on Tuesday. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary was called to White Pit Lane at 9:23 a.m. A Volkswagen Golf collided with a parked car and ended up on its side. Police and ambulance teams were also alerted. No injuries were reported. Police later confirmed that a 30-year-old woman from Sundown was arrested on suspicion of drug driving. She was taken to Newport Police Station. The road was blocked for a time while the vehicle was recovered and debris was cleared, reopening shortly afterwards. The county press was at the scene. For more breaking news as it happens, go to countypress.co.uk. If you see anything you think we should know about, email the editor at wcp.co.uk or call the reporters on 01983 259 003. For latest updates on crime and court, see our website. Look out for us in the doc section at countypress.co.uk for all the results from the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court.
Councillors loving it. McDonald's is given go-ahead. Plans for a new multi-million-pound McDonald's restaurant in Leyte have been waved through by councillors subject to conditions. The Planning Committee on Tuesday ditched council officers' recommendations to reject the proposed drive-through facility off Newport Road near Merry Gardens Pub and the KFC. Councillor Paul Fuller voted against the approval motion, and councillors Claire Critchison and Julie Jones-Evans abstained. 8 other councillors voted for the application: Matthew Price, Debbie Andre, Jeff Brodie, Caroline Gladwin, Nick Stewart, Martin Oliver, Chris Quirk and Peter Spink. The planners flagged the proposal's failure to meet policy requirements on health implications, adverse impact on neighbouring property, location outside of a designated town centre, insufficient information on archaeology and the lack of legal agreement for environmental improvements. A statement written by Planware on behalf of McDonald's said the proposals provide the opportunity for McDonald's to meet a long-standing requirement for a restaurant to serve this catchment area, to meet customer demand and introduce additional choice in the market. The proposed development represents a multi-million-pound investment, creating jobs both during the construction and operation phases, resulting in many associated economic benefits for the local area. The proposal constitutes sustainable development on a brownfield site in a commercial area surrounded by similar and compatible uses. Before the meeting, 124 members of the public signalled their support for the fast food giant's bid, according to Planners' report. Grounds given include increased employment, the use of derelict land, added choice of convenience food, improving the look of the area, and the development's proximity to workplaces, holiday parks and residences. Supporters also cited the food's affordability. 13 people opposed the bid, however, pointing to rubbish generation, long-term health impacts in the deprived area, excessive unhealthy food provision in Lake, traffic congestion, and the outlet's poorly paid and low-skilled jobs. Objections also included negative effects on locally owned businesses, possible lighting disturbance, failure to flag the development's proximity to a school, and access concerns.
Dangerous dog owner, fate looms. The fate of a dog owner whose pet dog de Borgia viciously attacked a care worker, causing life-changing injuries, will be decided in the coming weeks. Jason Turner of Lugley Street, Newport, pleaded guilty to being responsible for a dangerously out-of-control dog following an incident at the Goldings Care Home, Freshwater, on July the 21st last year. Turner did not have to appear at a mention hearing held at the Isle of Wight Crown Court on July the 2nd, but during it a sentencing date was set in his absence for September the 12th. The 51-year-old had initially denied the charge but went on to admit the offence. At the Goldings, Turner's pet dog Winnie, a Dogue de Bordeaux breed, had reportedly jumped up and attacked a member of care staff. The dog inflicted severe injuries to the lower part of her mouth. Turner made robust comments to officers about what he would do if his dog was confiscated from him, all caught on body-worn cameras. Judge James Newton Price said a destruction order for the dog may be considered, but until Turner is sentenced, he suggested it be placed in police kennels if they are able. Currently, Winnie is being looked after by Turner's ex-partner. The county press has been bringing the news to islanders since 1884. We've delved into the archives. 125 years ago, in July 1900, an island soldier was killed during the relief of Mafeking. Leonard Golding at Newport described a bright and cheery man was shot in South African police by the South African police during the final engagement to lift the siege of the town, like parents were told by telegram, following correspondence from the Ventnor Electric Lighting Company. Ventnor's town councillors joined at the idea the electric lighting would take over from gas lighting in the town. Queen Victoria was expected to arrive at Osborne House within the next week. 100 years ago, in July 1925, a Parkhurst prisoner climbed onto the prison roof and stayed there for a week. The prisoner named Burford was employed in the prison chapel. When the warder's back was turned, he jumped up and grabbed a beam on the ceiling. He got onto the roof through a skylight, and his extraordinary antics were said to have left fellow inmates in awe.
75 years ago, in July 1950, freak lightning effects were causing upset in the West Wight. Mr. E.G. Pritchard of Yarmouth had an alarming experience when a bolt of lightning narrowly missed his motor yacht as he was sailing back from Bewley. 3 youths that absconded from Camp Hill, Borstal, surrendered to the police just a day after their escape. The 17-year-olds escaped while on a cross-country run. The Island Sailing Club's Round the Island race had a record entry of 135 yachts. In the early morning, crowds lined Cowes seafront to watch the yachts depart, and then later that evening saw them return. 50 years ago, in July 1975, a close watch was being kept on beaches in the Ryde area following reports that Portuguese man-of-war jellyfish were sighted just east of Spithead. The sightings were made by a charter fisherman. Local farmers were asked by Medina Borough Council if there was a need to keep an abattoir on the island, and they replied with an emphatic yes. At the time, there were 2 abattoirs, although many farmers wanted a third. An Isle of Wight passenger ferry was in collision with the 425-ton mine hunter HMS Thames in Portsmouth Harbour. Damage was minimal, but a full investigation was conducted by the Royal Navy and British Rail. An island record was set by Ross Staplehurst of Main Road, Haven Street, who caught a Port Beagle shark weighing 230 pounds. Mr. Staplehurst had been fishing off Bembridge for 6 hours when he caught the shark using 2 mackerel for bait. For more tales of the past, subscribe to our online archive.
Letters and opinion. Time to be island proud and embrace the positives by Joe Plum, a columnist. As you read this, I'm heading up the country on a coach full of athletes, snacks and nervous energy, bound for Orkney and the 20th International Island Games to cover all things at Team Isle of Wight. Dozens of island communities are gathering, united by a shared love of sea air, a slower pace of life, and of course getting cross about ferry companies. We're bound together by the water that surrounds us and the ferry services that define our daily lives for better or worse. But being an island isn't just about traumatic coastlines or slightly overpriced chips. It comes with political, economic and social challenges that mainland areas don't always understand or even notice. Take a look at the other islands competing: Sorvana, Shetland, Gotland, Greenland, the Isle of Man, Alderney, Sark, Yazmon, Minorca, the Falklands, all different, yet all facing familiar issues. The biggest, young people leaving. Too many island communities haven't worked out how to offer more than seasonal work, expensive housing and limited options. Many islands struggle to recruit good teachers and maintain strong education systems. On the Isle of Wight, we've had decades of disruptions to our schools, but we're not alone. Tourism is showing high streets are under pressure. Our economy smiles politely while quietly struggling. Too often we look across the Solent and compare ourselves to places that don't share our realities. Maybe it's time we look sideways to our fellow islands and learn from what they're doing. Some have political independence to shape decisions that actually reflect the island life. Some have publicly owned ferry services. Some have found bold, creative ways to attract new visitors and retain young people. We could too, because what unites islanders isn't just shared problems, it's pride, identity, and a deep sense of determination. The Isle of Wight isn't too small, it's just been made to feel small. In reality, we're rich in talent, in our schools, on our stages, in our studies and community spaces. We're full of creativity, adaptability and drive. Let's stop asking whether we're allowed to be ambitious and start showing that we already are, because island life might be bonded by water. Supporting Team Isle of Wight isn't just about getting behind our incredible athletes, it's about being proud of everything our island can do and everything it can be.
Richard Quigley, MP for Isle of Wight West, tells us about his first year as an MP and a recent trip to Brussels. As many of you will know, it's now just over a year since I was elected as your MP for Isle of Wight West. May sound like a cliche, but it truly has been a privilege. I won't pretend that every day has been easy or that the government has got everything right, but what I can say is that every morning I wake up with a renewed sense of hope and determination to champion the issues that matter most to our island and to ensure they are heard by those in position to make a real change. Like many of you, I had concerns about the government's Universal Credit and PIP bill, and I want to thank everyone who got in touch to share their often very personal stories. I voted against the bill at its second reading because I believe it failed to provide fair treatment between new and existing claimants, and I was concerned by the lack of meaningful consultation with disabled people. That said, I was encouraged that the government listened, made changes, and wasn't afraid to admit that it got things wrong. That to me is what democracy is about, and I'm proud to be a part of a government willing to listen, adapt and change course when needed. On the topic of the bill, I was pleased to table an amendment in collaboration with the brilliant charity Young Lives vs Cancer. Our amendment would ensure that cancer patients are automatically entitled to the higher rate of universal credit without needing to undergo a capability for work assessment. Whether it's through this amendment or future policy changes, I'm committed to working with colleagues across Parliament and with Young Lives vs Cancer to ensure these patients receive the support they need and to shine a light on the charity's outstanding work in Westminster. As some of you will know, I'm also a member of the Public Administration and Constitutional Affairs Committee, PACAC. At the end of June, I had the opportunity to take part in my first overseas committee visit to Brussels. It was a packed and productive few days which included a visit to the European Parliament and meetings with MEPs. The trip was a valuable chance to engage with colleagues across parties and learn more about how we can strengthen our own system. Committees show cross-party collaboration at its best, and I'm proud to be a part of PACAC as we work to improve our system. As I reflected on this first year as an MP, I'll continue to acknowledge where we get things wrong, celebrate where we get things right, and above all, do everything I can to champion the island in Westminster.
Right, news of interest. Thursday the 17th of July. A summer show exhibition. Contemporary ceramics, mixed media, 3D wall art, which is at 10 a.m. Handmade ceramics and mixed media ID wall art, Thursday the 17th of July 2025 to Tuesday the 22nd of July, 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Free admission. Quar Abbey Art Gallery, Quar Abbey, Quar Road, Ryde, 0746 99
On Thursday the 24th of July, Vectis Brass Band Concert at 8 p.m. A free outdoor brass band concert at the beautiful Ralston Gardens. Ralston Gardens Bandstand, 10 Popham Road, Shanklin. From Tuesday the 15th of July to the 22nd of July, Crafty Artists Summer Exhibition at Carisbrooke Priory at 10 o'clock in the morning. Exciting collaboration between 6 island artists showcasing their latest work. Carisbrooke Priory, 39 Whitcomb Road, Newport. Telephone number is 07970 025 525.
On Wednesday the 16th of July, the Secret Army within the Isle of Wight Home Guard is at 7 p.m. and it's £7.50. Discover Churchill's secret World War II resistance network on the Isle of Wight with Sam Biles and help raise funds for Carisbrooke Castle Museum. Carisbrooke Castle Museum is in Castle Hill, Newport. The phone number is 01983 523 112.
On Saturday the 26th of July, Sandown Children's Carnival at 8:11 a.m. The popular fancy dress curtain raiser for the seaside town's main carnival later in the day. Sandown Pier, Esplanade and Sandham Gardens, Sandown, and then the main carnival at 7 p.m. The popular Sandown Parade kicks off the island's 2025 Island Carnival season. Sandown Library, 119 High Street, Sandown.
Continuing with the news here, My Fair Lady show will be lovely. The Apollo Theatre players are preparing to stage popular musical My Fair Lady. The show will open on Friday, July the 11th at the Apollo Theatre in Newport. The well-loved tale of Eliza Doolittle and Cockney flower seller turned lady by Professor Henry Higgins has been a favourite since 1966. My Fair Lady is more than just a rags to riches story, as it explores the constraints and possibilities of Edwardian Britain's strict social class system. Inspired by George Bernard Shaw's play Pygmalion, the tale questions the foundations of hierarchical society, suggesting that worth isn't just determined by social class or outward appearance. Reg Fussell, director, said, "This is a tale that continues to resonate and fascinate. Our aim has been to honour the charm and wit of Lerner and Loewy's masterpiece, while also bringing a contemporary sensibility to the timeless themes. I am proud of the dedication and talent of our cast and crew. The musical filled with classic songs like Wouldn't It Be Lovely? With a little bit of luck, I could have danced all night. And On the Street Where You Live will run until Saturday, July the 19th, but not Sunday or Mondays."
Forthcoming events at Shanklin Theatre in July. Every Thursday until the 9th of October at 8:15 p.m. Beyond the West End. On Saturday the 12th of July at 7:30 p.m. Barry Steele, Roy Orbison story. Friday the 18th to Saturday the 19th of July at 7:30, Jason Manford. On Sunday the 20th of July at 7:30, Think Floyd. On Saturday the 26th of July at 7:30, ABBA Reunion.
Road Closure Without Warning by Jacques Spaulding, Mark's Corner. After the debacle of the Horsebridge Hill closure, we at Mark's Corner are suffering the inconvenience of another road closure, this time with no warning at all. We left our house this week, turned left at the bottom of the hill to go to Cowes, and saw a road ahead closed sign. We wondered if it was a Pallant's Road again, Rue Street or Rolls Hill. We went a little further and discovered it was Hillis Gate Road itself, i.e. the road we were on, so it should have been a road closed sign, not a road ahead, which was closed for some sort of utilities works at a new build. We had to turn in a neighbour's drive, which is not really acceptable, and go via Chapel Corner. This closure, while only affecting a few people, I accept was made without any prior notification. There were no signs anywhere warning us this would happen, and there are still no signs saying how long it will be closed for. It is a day, a week, or a month. This particular development has been a nuisance from the start, with anything up to 8 vehicles parked along what is a very narrow winding road, making getting past very difficult, especially during the Horsebridge Hill closure, when more vehicles than normal were trying to use the road. This week was the last straw. It was obviously some sort of utilities work, so it can't have been an emergency closure. So I can see no reason for not informing people of an upcoming road closure. Is there anyone at Island Roads who is accountable for this?
A letter from John Wheeler of Cowes entitled Urinals Give Bad First Impression. We all know how important fresh first impressions are, so what did dirty urinals say to visitors travelling to the island on Whitelink? All the urinals on the ferry were stained and dirty this week as I travelled home, and I understand that the female toilets were the same. Disgusting. I took a photo of them and intended to send it to Whitelink themselves, but couldn't even find an email address on their website to send it to. We all know how poor and expensive the service that they have been offering to us has been in recent years, but they are providing equally costly to our island in so many other ways.
A letter here. Thank you to the NHS virtual ward team. Name and address supplied. Having to use 111 recently, the paramedics arrived to treat me and said I had severe chest infection. Rather than take me to A&E, they decided to contact the out-of-hours doctor and also the respiratory department of the hospital. This in turn had a unit called the virtual ward. A member of staff came to my home and set up an internal unit which measured my oxygen, temperature and blood pressure 3 times daily. This saved me having to go into hospital and take up valuable space. The staff of this unit were very caring and considerate of my needs. There are sometimes bad reports about the NHS, but here on the Isle of Wight it does not apply. A big thank you to all the staff involved.
Peter Shreve, Assistant District Secretary of the National Education Union, writes under the title Young People Left to Shrivel. On the Public Accounts Committee, brackets PAC, close brackets, report on teacher shortages, the report summary starts, after a decade of nationwide teacher shortages, the Department for Education does not have a grip. English education has been neglected. Far too long withering on the vine, many young people left to shrivel, unable to fulfil their potential due to neglect, adverse conditions or lack of resources. We are in the midst of the worst teacher recruitment and retention crisis in the generation created by long hours, poor pay, Ofsted and so much more. This is certainly the island experience, a lack of funding impacting everywhere. Normal pay progress is being slowed as schools don't have the funding. Teachers increasingly not teaching their subject specialism are told to fill in timetabled gaps which they have never been taught. Akin to an eye specialist suddenly being asked to do a hip operation because they are a doctor. No supply teachers to cover, only internal staff, creating extra stress and neglect of usual workload. Support staff suffering too. The PAC report rightly highlights high levels of pupil poverty where staff work under great stress, worsened by the negative impact of Ofsted. Disparity in pay between schools and colleges. Recruiting and retaining teachers with excellent subject knowledge will only be possible with a correction in teacher pay which must be fully funded. The PAC urges the Department of Education to develop a coherent plan with measurable targets backed up by evidence of what works. The National Foundation for Educational Research echoes the importance of building a strategy around the key factors for recruitment and retention raised in this report, including teacher workload, pupil behaviour, a lack of access to flexible working arrangements, and teacher pay and incentives. It is time for the Chancellor to engage with reality.
The Town Needs Revitalising by Penelope Baker from Lake. Further to your article on the state of Sandown Town Centre, CP 04-97-25, yes, the call for a compulsory purchase order is overdue. For your information, early 2025, I was a Regulation 19 participant at the hearings of the Island Planning Strategy. The dire state of the town was discussed. Housing developers suggested that hotels did not need to be on the seafront and could be further back. Premier Inn was suggested. Despite excellent public transport, the town suffers from lack of footfall. Bringing the town in line with National Planning Framework 2024 with a mix of commercial and residential use would revitalise the town. The time for historical anecdotes have passed. The town needs resuscitation. Also, how about a farmer's market using the wonderful esplanade in the winter? And now it is time for us to say goodbye, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
And goodbye from Tony. Have a good week.
The BBC In Touch programme follows, and the Scaffolding News follows that.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello.
My eyes don't see as much as yours, but you and me both know. And the world is full of magic sounds, and I hear music everywhere I go.
The latest children's TV show to put visual impairment at the forefront and with an emphasis on sound and music. But first, the government has published their 10-year plan for the NHS in England, following a public consultation. It promises to make the NHS fit for the future by focusing on three core areas: hospital to community, analogue to digital, and sickness to prevention. But how might it apply to eye care in particular? Well, joining me is Adam Sampson, who's Chief Executive of the Association of Optometrists and who's been looking at the plan in detail. Adam, given that eye care isn't mentioned specifically a great deal in the master plan, how confident are you that this is the change in eye care that you've been looking for and we've been looking for?
Well, certainly it's consistent in general with the sort of things that not just people like high street opticians, optometrists have been saying, but also what some ophthalmologists have been arguing, and patient groups like RNIB or other charities have been arguing for. But you're right. First of all, there's no huge mention of eye care in it. There are one or two useful indications that eye care isn't completely forgotten, which actually, frankly, in past it has been. So the Prime Minister did name check eye care in his speech. But I think our real concern is less about what the plan says. It's more about how government is now going to seek to deliver it.
Right. Well, let's look at a few specifics. Your organisation in particular has been calling for the move towards utilising high street optometrists in order to bring down ophthalmology waiting lists and things like that. Are you hopeful that the emphasis on community-led care will lead to that?
Certainly the indications are good, but there is danger in this. Yes, government is saying they're going to reduce waiting lists. Yes, they're saying they're going to move services out of hospital, but they're saying that they're going to do that at precisely the same time as they cut considerable amounts of money out of the commissioning process, that they will be creating a new digital NHS app to improve patient control. Now, doing all those things simultaneously in a health system which hasn't delivered hugely well in reform terms over the last 10 years, that's a big ask.
And is there also a danger that all elements of the eye care service will be speaking the same language. I mean, in response to the plan, the Royal College of Ophthalmologists say that consultants' oversight is essential to ensuring quality referrals, accurate diagnosis and safe treatment pathways. I mean, is there maybe still a tension between the optometrists wanting things in the community and the ophthalmologists wanting, the best diagnostic equipment and expertise to be available, which perhaps they still think are in hospitals?
There's no question that not everything can be moved into the community all at once. And to that extent, we agree. But inevitably, a shift from hospital to the community is going to, as well as empowering community providers, it will disempower hospitals. And the money will move out of hospital budgets into community budgets. So it's scarcely surprising if some of the secondary care voices are uncomfortable with some of what's being said. And the Royal College of Ophthalmologists are not alone of the doctors' voices in arguing that. But actually, the government really has no choice. We have massive shortages of ophthalmologists in this country. That's one of the major reasons there are so many people on the waiting lists. You can't simply say everything has got to be overseen by an ophthalmologist if there aren't enough ophthalmologists to go round. As well, government does know that services done in a hospital setting are much more expensive. They know that patients prefer to be dealt with closer to home, so long as they can trust the relationship they have with their clinical providers. And there is no shortage of equipment or trained clinical staff in high street optometry. So actually, government really doesn't have much choice. If it wants to bring down the waiting lists, it does mean it's going to have to make more use of community optometry than it has in the past. And ministers have repeatedly said their intentions are to do just that.
Now, you mentioned the push towards digital solutions and the NHS app being the main point of contact for patients and accessing their records, doing things like making appointments and so forth. The plan describes it as patients having a doctor in their pocket. But what could this digital push mean for visually impaired people?
If they get it right, it will be amazing. The difficulty with this is you look at the history of digital solutions, not just in the NHS, but in government generally, and your heart sinks a little bit. What they've got to invent is an app that not only works for secondary care, but works for the providers who are not necessarily mainstream hospital providers, so the dentists, the pharmacists, the GPs, the optometrists. The app has to be suitable for them. And it's got to be suitable for patients. And then above all else, this app is going to have to work for people who are visually impaired. And I have a real concern that if they get the app wrong, then the adaptations that are going to be necessary for the visually impaired community won't be thought of until far too late in the day. So it is essential that people from the visually impaired community aren't just forced down an app route with no other an alternative.
There is promise of a single patient record, presumably the idea being that there can be a more joined up way of sharing data and images across care settings. What effect will that have? Because that's something, again, that your association has been complaining there hasn't been so far.
Again, if they get it right, it will be superb. One of the encouraging things in the 10-year plan is their use of an example from optometry of just that happening in Gloucestershire, where optometrists in Gloucestershire can share details of eye scans directly with GPs and hospitals, which you'd have thought would be common sense all over the country, but is so unusual in NHS terms that government's picked it out as an example of good practice. That sort of stuff has got to be ubiquitous. We are in a situation where high street optometrists aren't able to do that very much. If you go to your optician will not necessarily be able to see what your medical records are, let alone share the results of the really extremely good quality scans that most opticians are now capable of taking. Often those scans have got to be repeated in a hospital setting. If we're looking to move care into the community close to where patients live, then digital connectivity is absolutely essential.
So, Adam, on a scale of 1 to 10, how optimistic are you about this?
For intent, I think we'd have to give the government 9 out of 10 for intent, but I have a real concern now about delivery. So I have my fingers very firmly crossed.
Adam Sampson, thank you very much for joining us. Now, meet Maddie and Triggs.
Listen to all these tiny noises. I wonder how loud the noises would be if we were tiny too.
Oh, let's be as quiet as teeny tiny things.
Maddie and Triggs shrink down to a tiny size.
There's a knock, knock, knock at the pipes.
Well, Maddie, a 7-year-old visually impaired girl, and her pet dog Triggs are the central characters of the latest children's TV programme from Irish studio Turnip and Duck. It's featured on Ireland's national broadcaster RTE and CBeebies. The emphasis of this show is very much music and sounds, as the characters find adventure by really listening to the everyday sounds around them. Well, joining me is the blind lyricist behind the music of Maddie and Triggs that you heard there, Dina Diamond, and the audio description lead is Oran O'Neill. But first, let's speak to Colm Tobin, who's the managing director at Turnip and Duck. Colm, first of all, give us a bit more of an overview of the show. I may have already done it for you and spoilt your pitch, but just describe in a bit more detail the characters and the world they're in.
Well, Maddie is a 7-year-old girl who loves music and sound and adventure. And she lives in the little town of Higgledy-Piggledy with her best friend and her pet doggy, Triggs, who shares her love of sound and music and adventure. And they're surrounded by a cast of colourful, wonderful characters, some imaginary, some from the real world around them.
And there's a lot of emphasis in the creation of this show that visually impaired people were to be as involved as possible. Just explain what you did and how you did it.
I guess, yeah, going back to the start of where this project came out of, it actually came out of a conversation between myself and Oren. Oren was doing the audio description on one of our previous shows, and he made a comment saying how well it worked for blind and vision impaired audiences, I think because it was kind of dialogue-led and kind of gag-led. It struck us that it was a real afterthought that we were delivering the audio description. It was kind of a contractual obligation. So it struck us that it could be a real creative challenge. You know, how could we consider the audience from the start? And the mission of the show was if two kids, one sighted and one vision impaired, were to sit down side by side to watch the show, that neither would have a lesser experience. One of the first things we did was we engaged with Vision Ireland here, and we decided that like an audio first approach would make sense in terms of how are we going to make a TV show that can work on both levels. But we really knew very little about this world, so then we kind of had to listen to people, which is what we started to do.
Now, Maddie is voiced by Bonnie Mira, I think, who's visually impaired herself. She plays the 7-year-old, and there was a happy coincidence, I think, when you found her.
Oh, it was so wonderful. With Vision Ireland, again, we put out a casting call and had some brilliant auditions in from vision impaired kids all around Ireland. And we knew we were looking for a very specific thing. We were looking for someone who could act, who was 7 years old or thereabouts, who was legally blind and could also sing some really quite ambitious songs and do some quite ambitious music. So that was a pretty hard call from a casting perspective. But Bonnie happened to be living up the road from us, going to the same school as our kids. It was like the universe was telling us already there's something happening here. And Bonnie came in and she voiced and sang all the songs on the original 15-part podcast, which is what we led the show with.
And you said you looked for visually impaired writers. How easy was it to find them? I mean, and what was your success rate, as it were?
It was very low. So we put out a call and, nothing really came back. But we struck gold in terms of finding out about Dina, and Dina being a comedy writer based in the States who works as part of a musical partnership. She does lyrics as well. Beyond that, there was no preschool writers per se that we felt we could find. So we launched a shadow scheme for blind and vision impaired writers, which I don't know if it's the first of its kind in the world. It was certainly the first of its kind here, and it's the first time we've done anything like like that. We have 10 writers who are totally new to it, and they got basically a kind of a crash course in writing for animation. And 4 of those writers, including Oren, went on to graduate and got their full script commissions and full episodes on the show.
Well, we'll be talking to Oran in a minute, but let me bring in Dina first, Dina Diamond, getting up early for us in Washington State. So, Dina, explain your involvement with this.
Oh my goodness. It's been a wonderful experience. When I first met with Aiden and Colm, they already had the podcast and they had 15 episodes, and I listened to that and was blown away. As a blind writer and songwriter, it was everything that I have been banging my head against the wall to try and do here in the States for years and years and years. But sadly, the United States was not open to having a show with a character with a disability.
Really? I mean, that's surprising in a way. Were you surprised?
It's unbelievable because for years I've been writing on shows and I've been allowed to introduce blind characters on different series that I've written on, preschool series, but to have a lead has just been a fight. So when I met these brilliant guys in Ireland who were able to do it, like, yes, please let me be part of this. So I felt so fortunate to have this opportunity to, one, meet these guys who had so much foresight in what the world should be and how inclusive it should be, but then also to find out that they're musicians too, and it's a music-based show. Hello, you're speaking my language.
Right.
Let me in.
And you also work with Bonnie, who plays Maddie, on the musical recordings. What was that process like?
Oh, Bonnie is a true talent, and no matter what we threw at her, she was ready for the challenge. She always came in 100% prepared. And we hit her with every genre of music, from a rock opera.
There was a clanging of battle. It was a big noisy battle.
To a power ballad.
It's hard, I know, but he'll be good as new.
To reggae.
I found a friend on the desert island.
You name it, she did it and was a star every step of the way.
Let me bring Oran O'Neill in, who is himself blind. He's the audio description lead at RTE. He's also a podcaster and a lead audio description specialist on Maddie and Triggs. Oran, you got involved in the show, and we know that kind of arose out of a conversation, but were you surprised to get this opportunity?
Yeah, very surprised. I really hadn't done any writing, creative writing at all. My own role in terms of audio description is assigning projects and reviewing scripts and what have you. So I might get the opportunity to rewrite part of an audio description script, but hadn't thought about writing at all for kids' animation. But as we went on and drafted more and more scripts and learned how the whole process works, I really found that I had a very keen interest and wanted to kind of pursue this. And then when the guy said, put in a pitch, but I didn't expect it to get commissioned. So my episode is kind of a true story. Triggs, he meets a guide dog and their owner, and Triggs is having a very hard time trying to figure out why the guide dog won't play with Triggs. And the episode is kind of just to show how guide dogs are trained. Kind of a fun play on distractions and how good and well-trained guide dogs are. And I'm still writing to this day, so I've really got the bug now for it, yeah.
There's one thing I must ask you, Colm. We've mentioned the writing course and, we've heard Oran say, what an eye-opener. I'm allowed to make that joke, for us. Can people get involved with that in the future? Is that going to be a running plan, really?
That's what we would love to do. I guess we are a very, very small company, so really do need the bigger stakeholders, the training agencies in the industry, just to row in behind us a little bit. So we did the first one kind of as a test in Ireland with 10 writers. We'd like to extend that to the UK for Series 2, when and if that happens. There's so much I think we learned ourselves as producers in terms of running that program for Series 1, you know, how difficult that can be in terms of making software accessible, all of those learning curves that we never would have considered before. I think we're trying to catalogue all that intel, and we're trying to share it widely within the industry just to kind of show other studios and companies, you know, this is doable. And not only is it doable, but it makes your content and it makes your creative work all the better for it, because you're bringing in new voices who bring just a different skew on things and a totally different perspective.
It's great to meet you all on In Touch, and we'll be watching this progress with great interest. Colm Tobin, Oren O'Neill, Dina Diamond, thank you all very much indeed. And that's it for today. But one last thing before we go, we're keen to hear from people about their experiences with access to banking. This is something that we've touched on quite often, but this is for an upcoming collaboration we're planning with Rip Off Britain. How accessible is your bank? Any issues? Let us know. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk, or you can leave us a voice message by calling 0161 836 1338. From me, Peter White, and producer Beth Hemmings. Goodbye.
The Scaffolding and Skips news. The Newport area. The Salvation Army Church, 72 Pyle Street, Newport. The Newport area skips. 84 Hinton Road, Newport.
Ride area. Aspire, 35 to 36 High Street to Union Street. White's Fish and Chip Shop, 41 to 42 High Street, 25 George Street. Ride area skips 2 Melville Street. The Lodge, 1 Ferry Road Seaview, 58 High Street, Bembridge.
The Ventnor area. 28 South Street, 21 Church Street.
Shanklin area skips 29 Brook Road.
Cowes area. Lloyd Bank, 71 High Street, 49 Sunny Hill.